What is up, and welcome to the first ever podcast on this channel. Aptly, first I'm going to name it Nick's Next Level Podcast. I want this to be the topics of video games, geek-related topics, leveling up to the next level, and some wise Alec humor as well as true wisdom and personality. I had the idea for a while to start something on here where talk about things, just discuss a few topics and get the thoughts out, on the page and onto the screen or through the audio. So, want a balance of some humor and some funny, as well as truly meaningful discussions and a wise bones with wise bonesiality. Let me know, my friendly viewers, what you think of the picture on here too. The image is based off some video game inspirations. One of them might be obvious, hint it's probably a Grand Theft related if you get the picture. And the other one is the safe. If you see the safe on the left side of the screen, let me know if you can guess where that's from. From one of the old school video games. If you can guess where it's based off of, you are a sly and crafty gamer of the old school, my friends. It's supposed to be kind of funny, of course, to, make me look like some sort of ridiculous, confident video game character or something, but also not be, I don't want it to look like some kind of jerk, not actually from this game, and it's just to be a little bit mischievous and funny and look good and all, a little bit cool, right? But it's just the idea of the image, right? To have an image when you're creating a channel and make it interesting in that way, make it fun or stick out in a way. So anyway, gonna get on to the topics now at hand. Some of the topics for this one to discuss are a little bit touch of Marvel movies and Marvel video games. Gamestop has some things going on, and a little bit of Grand Theft Auto 6, a 007 game, and the meaning of level up in games and in life. And if there's time, I want to talk about freedom of speech and is it affecting video games? Do I actually have something personal that's actually related to the topic of freedom of speech and in the games, on Xbox and how the chat works on there? And did I say something slightly risque, or is Xbox actually giving out censorship suspensions, like it's candy on Halloween? All this to come and more on Nick's Next Level Podcast. Just a quick talk on the newest Marvel movies and stuff I've seen, particularly on the Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man Brand New Day was announced, which looks pretty cool, and I just hope that, being a fan of the Spider Dude, hoping that this one is good, and really, it just seems like the MCU in general, first of all, it's pretty long-lived at this point, and they got a bit of a pattern the way it works, right? They got the comedy aspect, and they got cameos and all this, and I really just hope that for this movie, that when it comes out, that it's not as all over the place, right? I don't want an unfocused movie. I want to, if it's a Spider-Man movie, I don't want freaking 7 villains and 5 plot lines and 3, character cameos and all this stuff, right? Just trim down some of the fat, so to speak, and give me something that makes sense. It's focused and cool and good, right? So I really just want a focused story, cool action to go with it, right? And there's plenty of comic book based channels really. So I'm probably not gonna get too much into this, but that's just the point I want to make. I do think it could be cool, right? That they actually have a Tom Holland. His version has another movie. Makes the most sense, I suppose, because he's the youngest. But just give me something good, right? Don't give me unfocused mess. Don't give me cameos just for the sake of it. Make the things in the movies have a point, make sense. had a little bit of, good writing or funny or good action, good, whatchamacallit, special effects and all that. But try not to get stuck in the MCU-isms of just adding things all together just for the sake of it because cameos, right? It's just, or too many villains for no reason. So just wanted to say that really quick. It could be good. Hopefully it is. And we'll see if that turns out good for the Spider-Man Brand New Day uh, movie coming out there. Also, a Spider-Man movie I've heard of or caught my attention, which is it's called Spider-Man Alone, which is not out yet, but it just looks interesting. It's a small budget kind of project that someone's working on, and it has a pretty cool trailer. So I encourage you guys, if you have the time, to check it out because it looks really cool. It looks like it has some heart and some good, ability and special effects from a small trailer. Looking for some donations on there from that creator, and I left a little bit of a small donation. So if you get a chance, check it out. It looks pretty cool. Moving on to GameStop, right? Which is interesting that GameStop has been in the news a few times through history with the whole GameStop stock thing that was going on at one point. But this time, I don't know if GameStop is doing too well. I heard tell that there are stores closing around town, or in other words, closing very often, all around everywhere pretty much, right? I've seen this within where I live too. There was a few GameStops that shut down. And I think this sucks, unfortunately. I have maybe the unlikely opinion that I don't really hate GameStop or anything, but I do think that this is it's not surprising in any way, really. I think this is what's going to happen, that there's going to be some kind of problems with this store and in the games industry that's going to lead to GameStop closing stores. So let me go ahead and explain a little bit. Really, GameStop has a lot of competition right now. You take into account the e-commerce sites, right? The other ways of playing and buying video games, Amazon, various online shopping sites. Not as many people are buying from GameStop in particular. Look at how many video game companies are making games, unfortunately, in my opinion, specifically to make them to be bought and to be downloaded on the console. They don't even necessarily want you to buy physical games, for what I can tell, and I think that sucks. But as for GameStop, this is all affecting them, and they would have to catch up somehow, right? They would have to change their business model in some way to accommodate these changes to the gaming industry. So I think it's a shame. I don't necessarily want these stores to go away. I would like, I'm not in the contrary belief apparently, that I would at least like an option, right? Some kind of physical store to have video games, or video games to be, available in a specific store for games. Excuse me. With GameStop being that option, one of the only options left that's like only game specific. But opinions may be mixed, I'm sure. And in the modern world, who really knows? Will it last even? I'm not really too sure. Will GameStop even keep going as long as it has, or will it be pushed out, or will they not, catch up in the way the things work with shipping and e-commerce and all that? I really can't say. I've only, have so many. I don't really necessarily have strong beliefs or opinions on it. I would like there be game stores to exist. And I'd like physical games to exist. Really, is what I would really like. Although I don't think that's going to be always the option, which is a damn shame in my opinion. But who knows with GameStop? I'm not calling for you to be taken down, but who really knows as for what will go on with that. And on to the big boy video game to touch on Grand Theft Auto 6. The big game of big sticks. Okay, never mind. You know what I mean. But I do believe that GTA 6, when it comes out, or who knows when it'll come out, it's been an insanely long time since this game has been announced, or since there's been a Grand Theft Auto game. I do believe it will be a hugely profitable game, no fun intended. Whether it's good or not, or whether it's amazing or not, I really can't say. I really don't know off the top of my head how good this game will be, but I'm just making the point that, whether good or bad it will be, it will probably be a huge successful game and probably just it's gonna make an impact. I believe it'll be a dominating force of a game that will probably take over the games industry, which is, I know I'm exaggerating, right? But my point is, whether it's good or bad of a game, it's Rockstar has, the bigness right now. They are a extremely successful and money driven, or not money driven, but they have a lot of money in the company. And I'm thinking other games are probably going to, unfortunately suffer in the process as soon as this game comes out. It's going to be the talk of the town. It's been the talk of the town ever since a long time, ever since they came up with the trailer for GTA 6. So, will it be fun? Probably. Is it going to be a perfect game? I really don't know, right? So, whether it's deserved or not, other games will probably be falling, right, to the shadow of the gargantuan that Rockstar has created. The game's your piece of parody sandbox itself, right? So, probably be an epic in some ways, right? A lot of people are going to make videos about it. A lot of people are going to, comment on it. Controversies for all we know, right? So, just saying that, just to get that out there, that I'm not necessarily saying that it'll be good or bad. I don't think it'll be perfect by any means, but I do think that GTA 6, for all it's worth, is going to be an impactful release. So other games may have a problem, and we'll see how well they can do with the force that is GTA 6 once it's released. Alright, and there was also a James Bond game coming out that caught my attention a bit. And, 007 First Light it's called. Kind of looks meh. Of course, they changed the James Bond character to be more modernized, as you could put it. So he's younger now and a little more angsty, probably not as much as a ladies' man as the usual James Bond, and probably still kicks some ass with, the millennial aesthetic rub, of course. Could be good, right? The graphics and maybe the gameplay is good. Looks familiar, but cool enough. And but it's also a little bit of another product of the modern gaming landscape, so to speak. You can get a cool, badass, video game for dudes to play here and there, but either few and far between nowadays, or they just have a bit of an oddity sometimes, in the modern world. They tone it down a little bit, and in my opinion. And it is what it is, but it's, it just makes it a little bit less cool. Not as fun as, as what games used to be at some point. So, just talking about the 007 game there. It's pretty much wrapping up on that one. On to the topic of one of the mottos here on this year's YouTube channel, which is level up in games and in life. So just to go into a little bit more detail as to what I mean by that, basic meaning is to, play games, level up, and also do things outside of video games every now and then. And of course, apply patterns and worth ethic, to level up in both, really. Outside of this channel for YouTube, really, I have other things I do, other things I work on, and I go to work. I have many jobs I've done previously. I do have a job, as of the moment, currently as well, that I go to. Um, I study topics, technology, make money. I've done social things, physical activities, just doing activities that are good to do outside of only gaming. So one of the main basic things it means is to have small doses of self-improvement added to the channel, with the goal of leveling up not only in video games but also life goals, and to have a balance, really. Balance of positivity and cool experiences to do. But it also means to level up, meaning to make progress. So, for example, if I'm doing this podcast, or if I'm making videos, making a gameplay video, if I'm making a funny or whatever, the idea doesn't have to be extremely perfect on the first one I put out, but it's to progress, and whether it means adding things that are physical equipment or ways I do things, make them better, funnier, or better said, or filmed in a better way, whatever the case may be, is to progress them, meaning to level them up, and do them a little bit better as time goes on, basically to continue them, right? to continue them and to work to, not only keep going, but every now add something that's a little new or do an improvement, basically. Improve it. That's the meaning behind level up, really. Um, so that's really what that means. Continuously work on things, do things outside of gaming every now and then, although I do still love gaming, still like to play games, and they're a lot of fun. It just means to do things outside and to level up things, then its experiences, as well as improve upon them, when the case may be, and when it makes sense to do so, for better quality, to gain more things, to create things that are better, and to be striving to do the next level. Just a quick off-topic thing here, or quick thing to discuss about, some of the presentation on this YouTube channel, the name and such. I do think it's a good idea, in my opinion, so what I did, change the name at the moment, which will probably stick at this point to, instead of Snarkbones, to Nick Wisebones. And it's really, I have a couple of double meanings on here, right? Snarkbones was supposed to mean, smart alecky, but also relate to rock music. And while Wisebones very similarly means smart aleck, but also wise genuinely, right? Meaning truly actually smart in things and can say things in a wise way, which, I think that the name change is actually really good at this point, and I think it can be a really good balance instead of coming off too, I don't know if you say maybe too off the cuff in the name, right? If that makes sense. But now also be funny, but also can talk about topics that are that's not going to come off like it's just too ridiculous or too just me snarking around, right? I think that that's this at this point that this name change is a good stick for that moment because it's better in that way. So it's still going to be fun here. It's still going to be comedic in a way, but a little bit of actual good talking professionalism is cool and welcome. Let's just say right in the moment. And really, as far as coming between one of these two ideas of the smart aleck, who's also a tough, badass or whatever, like, or between that and the guy who's pretty tough and smart aleck, but is also wise, smarter than he is, only some kind of, off the cuff guy. I really think that fits me better. I really think that, I'm actually much more, I'm really more smart and capable in that regard than I am only just the person who's, gonna just be some kind of hard ass and, act like I'm always the shit or something, right? It's not always the case, right? I would not want to just be some kind of a-hole all the time. It's much more better balanced to talk in a way that's a little bit, wiser than it is to only be a smartass who's all tough and shit. So I'm just saying that in that regard, I think it's a welcome change right now. Okay, and on to what should be the final topic for today. Should be interesting to cover how I got temporarily suspended from Xbox Live Chat and why I believe this is related actually to some modern day censorship and related to how that is censorship in video games in general, particularly online gaming nowadays. And so, I'll get to that. Just to give some background on this topic here, I've actually been part of, I've been playing video games, specifically the Halo games, have Master Chief Collection games on Xbox. And it's been in a group chat as well. We have a group of people. It's been a lot of fun. And so, I don't want to give any details as to anyone really, except for myself. I'm going to keep it very generalized. Anyway, so we've been playing these games. Had a lot of fun, costumes, going online, even playing, not ranked, but, the social games on there too, sometimes, and people have had all kinds of fun shenanigans, right? Both in the games and the group chat, say a thing here or there, but, it's very mainly positive, really. So, it's just been a lot of fun doing that with certain people of all ages and groups, really, involved in that, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit. So that's pretty much the background for that. So where this goes to is that I basically got suspended only for temporarily for one of the messages I put on there, which I'm probably gonna put it on there and it's gonna look a little there might be a certain word in there, but anyway, I'll just show it to you, and I want to get what people's feedback and what they think of this, and what I'm going to say here, which I think is actually not necessarily I'm defending myself, but making the point that censorship should not be very extreme on online games because they're a casual and fun experience. So, as you can see, it's probably up on the screen at this point, and it's just a joke I made, and I think it was actually pretty funny. I laughed at it. I think other people laughed. They put in their LO or something, right? Because what the point being, it wasn't meant towards anyone, right? I really don't know why something like this would get me temporarily suspended, other than there's a certain bad word in there, right? The forbidden F word. I guess you could say that that's a pretty bad word, all right. But the point being is that, in this message, or really in general, I never go and make insults or jokes at anyone, even on the games for the most part. When I'm playing it, pretty much any game, this is not meant towards anyone, right? Just because I put in a word in there, it wasn't meant towards anyone. It's a joke altogether to be funny and have a good laugh, because I really believe that in a big point, that's what the video games are about, to have an enjoyable experience. And so I just find it ridiculous that something like this can get someone temporarily suspended when there was no ill intent here at all. I said, and I can see why you shouldn't say a swear word in certain places. And for the most part, you really shouldn't. But that's more for, a certain context. This is a video game, right? I would never say go to work and start swearing a bunch of times, and I don't do that, and that wouldn't make sense to do so anyway. I agree with that. But this is Xbox Live, right? Or Xbox Network. I don't know why people would find this offensive in any way, because that's not what that is. They're two different contexts completely, right? I remember back on the Xbox 360, for example, or just, certain times of games and certain ways they were done, that you could have all kinds of fun on here. But people said things, all kinds of crazy things. Some of it went a little too far, but some of it was just, hilarious. It was all part of the experience. So if you couldn't tell, that's kind of the way I am. If I grew up playing these games in a certain way, then it's fun to do so. It's fun to joke around with this kind of stuff. I've never been vicious on these games, for the most part, especially as of recent. It's all been fun. As long as something is a message, and it's not really, in my opinion, what you have to look at for something to be censored. The only reason I can think of is if it's literally very vicious or it's threatening, right? It's basically an initiation of violence in some way, then that would be the reason to do so. But this certainly did not have that. And other than a situation like that, I don't see why something should be censored. I would make the argument that it should be uncensored, right? That's the way things should be, because it's a bad thing to be censoring things too much. It's a slippery slope. It's a very bad thing that could, I don't like voices being shut down. And maybe this is a very, this is an interesting way to bring this up, right? Through this example. But you gotta understand, I'm a person who, I also like to question things sometimes. And I think that's a good thing, right? If someone wants to question things, it's not good when someone's trying to shut that down, right? That's good to want to question something right every now and then, to figure something out, because you're trying to learn something and be positive about it, right? You're doing it in a way that is good. And to be shut down for something like that, to be censored, in other words, I just don't think that's a good thing, right? So in the Halo games, for example, or the online gaming, it doesn't even have to be Halo, but in this, situation that I'm talking about, people have talked smack before, but for the most part, it's been wholesome, right? It's been funny, all kinds of crazy jokes going on, which were fun. Nobody was being super vicious to each other for the most part. Well, I do know that I never partook in it. So let me just say this, right? If anything, I've actually encouraged people to do it better, right? To do it right. You look at one of my slogans on here, level up right. I remember particularly seeing when someone, there was an example when people were all ganging up on one person, and I said, that's not cool. We shouldn't do that, right? I encourage people to have fun and be a little bit, wild in their conversation, while also doing it in a way that's positive, being respectful. I would always want to have more respect for people, and for people that respect each other more than to be negative. It's just, I've actually pretty much always been a very positive or kind in that way. It's just a better way to do things. So I just thought it was interesting to bring this up, right? This whole thing with the censor thing, because it is an example of that, right? And I don't like when things are too censored. I think that's a bad thing. So I never want to be toxic, but I really never am toxic. I always encourage people to do things more respectfully. And so it's just something I wanted to bring up because, I believe in general, not only in games, but I don't want to get too off topic here, that censorship is a bad thing, and especially in how common it is nowadays. It's a very slippery slope that's very bad. I don't like that. I'm not saying go around and say whatever you want by any means, but nowadays we've gone into the whole extreme other end. Oh, you can barely say anything without being, somebody not liking it or someone wanting to censor that thing, and that's just bad. That is completely terrible, And on the video game side, it's in there as well. I think that it's very common in online gaming too, and that's one of the last places it should be. But well, not the one of the last, but it's just another example of somewhere that it shouldn't be, right? So, and as far as the games in this Xbox community and the Halo community that I've had on here or been a part of, it's been casual, positive, and fun, and that's the way it should be. There should be no reason to cut things out like this because it's all in good fun. Do live in a, not to go too far here, but I'm in the United States, right? And that should be part of it. This should be taken into account. They're supposed to have freedom of speech here, and I know it's an interesting thing to bring up on a mainly geek and gaming focused channel, but as you can see on my channel before, I've mentioned things about the United States in any way, just the value of freedom that I have. So I see no reason that I shouldn't be able to bring it up. I'm not here to particularly fit into only one category always, right? Because that's just the way it is. I don't think you have to be stuck to a label to where just because you talk about something, you can't talk about the other thing. In some cases that's the way it is, but in other cases, there's no reason to be boxed in. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much my piece on that. Xbox online games should have freedom of speech in regards to while also being fun and casual, but they should also be a bit more uncensored for the experience to be fun and positive, and those, in my opinion, very much go hand in hand. Alrighty, and that's gonna pretty much come to the end of the conclusion of this one. Thank you so much for checking it out, listening. It's gonna be cool, right? I'm gonna sign out here of the very first epically done next level podcast. Let me know what you think of these topics, and if you agree or if you want to come over and talk some smack to me, right, and say that I'm wrong, please let me know that either way. It's all good in the hood here, my friends, right? No bullshit edition. Anyway, let me know what you think. Leave your opinions and comments down below. I'm going to go out and sign out this one by saying, level up, games in life, have fun, with video games and experiences and things you're doing outside of everything of that, and strive to be high level.